It's all good. All right. So what we were talking about last week, so thank you for all virtually attending. The advantage of that is we have like Dina on, and there was somebody else that always comes and now is in New York. And I said, well, you could come if you want. We're Zooming. So we were talking about what happens each time you go out, going through the process of the dates. And we said the first time is light and superficial, and I could meet you anywhere and be friendly and cute, and that's what you're being basically. You're basically, you know, just saying your funny camp stories, and he's saying his funny yeshiva stories, and that's what it's like. It's just breaking the ice, getting to know you, sort of feeling the other person out in a very superficial but way to get you comfortable for the next time. And the next time, and we said the next time might take one time, the next time might take 3 times. It totally depends on, you know, how quickly you get past the next time. We said the next time you're going to get like more, obviously more serious. I mean, more meaningful. This is meaningful, as we keep saying. This is not fun. This is not meant to be fun. When you know it's him, it gets nicer, but the process is not so fun. So more meaningful, no list of questions, no big issues. You're not getting deep, you're not getting intense, but more substantial topics to understand perspectives on issues. We said you could share meaningful things in your past, things that influence you, a mashpia figure that influenced you, friends that were important to you, your relationship with the schools you went to, with teachers, maybe grandparents, things that are like, you're talking about something that you care about. You're talking about something that's, in a sense, personal, but not like really private. What you do in your spare time. It's not a rigid list. It's just ideas of like, we're getting a little more to know each other. And when you feel comfortable enough and safe enough, you move on to the 3rd date, which might be the 3rd time or it might be the 5th time. It's fine. No pressure. There's no pressure. As long as each time you feel something's happening and we're moving, it's good. So what happens the 3rd time? So the 3rd time you're already speaking to someone that possibly this is a person that I'm going to get married to, but I don't know yet. We're still in theory. Obviously, practice isn't always theory, but in theory, this is very intellectually oriented. Not meaning you're not warm and nice, but meaning like you're using your mind to process. It could be afterwards. Sometimes if you think too much during, you get very stiff and you're not open, but you afterwards definitely want to like review everything very seriously. But here at this point, you're already talking about plans for the future. Vision of the home you want to build. Now, you're not saying our home. It's not our home level. But you want to share what type of home you want to build, your thoughts about chinuch, how you feel to educate children. Because you want to see, are we in sync? Or if we're not, maybe I'm open to shifting to his vision. Maybe he's open shifting to mine. Maybe we're going to find something in between the two that works for both of us. So you need to start laying these things on the table because, and this is of course called the beauty of the shidduch system, you want to know this all in advance, and you can know this all in advance, and you can say, hey, we're incompatible. We have such a different vision. And of course, sometimes things that are theoretically incompatible do get married, but then they struggle with. I was just talking yesterday to a girl who's very into like doing everything very naturally, and married to a man who's into doing everything traditionally. So I just like a simple example. Like I mean, it's not even a home birth. She wants a midwife, and he would like never want his wife to have a midwife. So that's a little bit of friction. That's a little bit challenging. I'm not saying for that reason they shouldn't get married. They're happily married. But along these lines, the more you express yourself, and again, very often you're not looking to marry your mirror, but you want to make sure it converges. You want to make sure it works. At this point, I would say something really important to talk about is your parents, because you want him to talk about his parents. So you want to talk about your parents. You want to talk about their relationship, because you want to know about his parents and their relationship. You want to talk about how your family ran and the vision this gives you of a family. You want to know how his family ran and what type of vision of family he has. Again, this is not a rigid list. This is relevant ideas. But my whole mindset here is he a builder? Is he a mensch? Is he going to be an amazing husband? Is he going to be a solid, committed father? So I'd like to know this. Now, again, you can marry someone that's not those things, and often people do. But if you have the luxury of figuring it out and knowing this is what you want, is a lot more likely you're going to get it. So that would be like what I would call the third date, which might be the third, might be the fifth, might be the sixth. It might take 2 or 3 times. It might take 1 time. Depends, obviously, on you and a lot of other factors. But when you feel now you went through those things, you feel safe, you feel secure, you like his parents' relationship, or you like his response to his parents' relationship, you like his vision of a home, you like his vision of children, you know, when you're feeling, yes, this seems good, this seems high quality, this seems like what I'm looking for, you go on to what I'm going to call the fourth date. From the fourth.
Wait, I have a quick question. What if he talks about how he doesn't like the way his parents were, but he's conscious about changing that? Is that something you can rely
on?
So
that's what I'm saying. That could very much well be, meaning you could have a person who did not like his parents' relationship, and he explains to you why, and he explains to you therefore how he's committed to being different. That could be great. Now, the caveat to that is, even people that say that are very influenced by what they saw. So if depending how many years he was home, but let's take a girl. If a girl's home for 18 years, and for 18 years she sees a relationship she doesn't like, that doesn't mean she's not affected by it. That doesn't mean she's not going to still follow some of those patterns, obviously unwittingly, because she doesn't like it, but she still does it sometimes. So you do have to keep that in mind. If he describes his parents' relationship and he didn't like it, it doesn't mean he didn't absorb it. He absorbed it, but he doesn't like it. Again, that doesn't mean he's off. It might be great because, hey, he's more aware than a lot of other men, and he's committed to being different, which is great. But again, I'm just putting it out there, like, people are tremendously influenced by their environment. But like sometimes a person could say, like they say, my parents fought and I hated it. I can't stand fighting. I feel like covering my ears and running under the cover somewhere. And I am so committed to never having that relationship with my wife. Now you could say, oh, that's great, but I want to sort of find out. Now I might do some research. We said the most effective research is when you're going out, because then you know exactly the information you want. So you might then do a little research, have someone do research for you. Is he argumentative? What's he like in a conflict? And you might find, oh no, he's always the type that gives in. He wants peace. Oh, great, good. Or you might find, well, he's actually a little prickly. He's, okay. So this is what his vision. He's not lying to you. This is his vision, but still he absorbed. So I definitely wouldn't say a bad marriage, a person of saying their parents didn't like their marriage means he's no good. He might be great because of that. But again, understand there's a little bit that probably went in, but maybe not. Maybe he completely rejected it because he couldn't stand it. From the fourth time on, which again might be your fourth, might be your seventh, might be your eighth, from the fourth time on, at this point, each time before you go out, you should think, why am I going out again? What do I still need to know? What do I need to understand about him? What do I want this date to accomplish? Meaning sometimes what happens, and I see this with a lot of girls, is it starts like fizzling out. Meaning like check, everything's good. And then we just keep going out and going out and going out. And like there's no progress. We just keep going out because we're not sure what else we're supposed to be doing at this point. So it helps to be like frontally thinking, what do I want this to accomplish? Why are we going out again? In other words, in theory, you're supposed to go out until you know yes or no. If it's no, done. If it's yes, done. Get engaged. Enjoy. So why am I still going out? So that's something you have to think. Do I have all the information I need? Sometimes you have all the information you need, but you just keep going out and going out and going out. You're not getting any new information. You don't need any new information, but you're trying to like figure it out, yes or no. It's sometimes, honestly, and I've mentioned many girls where it's really not clear. So not clear. So sometimes it's information, sometimes it's an issue you want to discuss with him, and it's something you realize you're not sure about and you want to make sure he and you are on the same page or a compatible page. And sometimes you just say, I need to spend more time with him just to see if he's the right one. And you keep doing that until your mind says yes, or perhaps your mind says no. If your mind says no, check out. Nicely, graciously, out. If you've gone out many times, you have to be especially careful to leave it nicely. because again, he was ready from the second time. So like, you got to be really careful. And then once your mind says yes, once intellectually it's correct, and in theory, I know this isn't necessarily going to happen, you're not robots, but I'm telling you the theory. In theory, at that point, and only at that point, this is when you want to open up your heart. You want to open yourself up emotionally. And for some people, it's supernatural. They were opened up a long time ago. And for some people, it's really, really, really difficult. It's really difficult. And they don't feel anything. Sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes they emotionally are sort of turned off, but intellectually everything's right. I've definitely seen a number of girls go through that. They don't stop because everything's right. He's everything on the list. But emotionally, they're really not interested, and they're really not excited about getting engaged to him. Very hard situation to be in, and it happens. Definitely happens. And at that point, you just, if you really feel intellectually he is right, you keep trying to working on your heart, trying to work on becoming emotionally close. Feeling, a lot of times it helps to just expose more of yourself, share more of yourself, having really honest conversations with him about yourself and him about himself. And that's sometimes like bridges the gap and make people feel very connected to the other person. For some people, it's just like being in a more romantic setting, like brings it out in them. But you want this real emotional connection. You want to have a feeling for him when you get engaged. If you don't get engaged. Sometimes, Dina, did you have a question? I see the lights around your box. Maybe not. Sometimes you're really, absolutely not sure. You're just not sure. It's not that you need more information. You're just not sure, and it's a very big decision. Sometimes it helps, not always, but sometimes it really, really helps to take a break. And I'm sure you've heard of the concept of taking a break. The purpose of taking a break is to see, how do I feel if I have absolutely no contact with him? And sometimes you're like, oh, I'm so relieved. Okay, that's a pretty good sign. And sometimes you miss him. And sometimes you're really happy to see him afterwards. And that's also a good sign. For a break to work, the only way a break works is if it is an absolute break. Meaning a break, but we text, we WhatsApp, we maybe even, video call. That's not called a break. A break means you have no contact. Not one text, not one WhatsApp, nothing. If you email, people email nowadays, if they do, nothing. Absolutely no contact. If there's contact, it's not going to work, so there's no point. You want it to work. How long should a break last? I've seen lots of different times. Sometimes a lot of times people say a week, but sometimes a week just doesn't give you enough information. And sometimes a person really needs 3 weeks. Sometimes people really need 4 weeks. Sometimes you need a 3 to 4 week break to really feel, I'm glad he's out of my life, or I want him in my life. That's in essence what you're trying to understand and what this break is supposed to accomplish. So I know that Zoom is a little more artificial than being in person, which is why this class I always thought would be better in person. But any questions, any feelings about any of this stuff? Okay, good. I guess it makes it very clear. Fine. So that's now continuing along those lines. Sometimes we're going backwards a bit. Now you're not like in date number 10 or 7 or 5. You're like 1 or 2 or 3. And you're feeling very awkward when you go out. That's totally normal. It's totally normal to feel awkward. Sometimes you're comfortable with some people, but with other men you feel very awkward. Sometimes you feel awkward always. It's hard for some people. Now, some people it's not hard at all, and they're very comfortable, and they're very socially adept, and they've got no issues. And for a lot of girls, it's very hard. First, even if you're like naturally a very outgoing girl, it's not a natural environment. It's a very artificial environment. You feel on display. That makes people sometimes feel not very safe. So if you feel that way, first of all, validate yourself. A lot of girls feel that way. That's very, very normal. After you validate yourself, so that would be the first thing to do, but after you validate yourself, you need to create a sense of safety to make the date work. Meaning you can't go out and accomplish anything if you're stiff and awkward and uncomfortable. You're going to give off really funny energy. You're not going to be accepting his. It's not going to work. So you have to figure out, what do I need to make this work? And then you should tell the shadchan in advance. Don't be embarrassed. You have to say, to make this more comfortable for me, maybe you prefer a distracting environment. Sometimes that helps people. Maybe you want to go to an arcade for the first time, like a Nickel City type thing on a higher level than that. You just want to be like in a place where you can more, like, so to speak, have fun and relax and have distracting things so you don't feel like you're in this strange bubble with him. You don't have to be so focused on each other. Or maybe that wouldn't work for you at all. You have to figure out what works for you. But if you know, now again, you're not going to know the first time you go out, but if you pass the first time or the second time and you notice this pattern with yourself, think about it or talk with someone. Remember we spoke about having that mashpia figure for going out, and really, like, try to figure out what would make you feel comfortable. And then you have to state that very clearly to make sure it happens so you are comfortable. Okay, different topic. Something totally different, but I've seen sometimes with girls, is the idea of being, like, emotionally needy. That's what I call it. If you know you're emotionally needy, or you're talking to a good friend who you know she's emotionally needy, you have to change it before you go out. Very, very important. Why? Well, because you get married emotionally needy, you can drive your husband crazy. You'll be home all day. You'll be so needy for him. He's going to come home. You're going to be so clingy to him. He's going to be like, get me out of here. So again, if you know that's true for you, or if you know it's true for a good friend of yours, pass on the information. You really want to change that so you don't create that stress in your marriage. Also, of course, if you're emotionally needy, it could attract you to people that aren't healthy, or it can make you a target for people that are unhealthy. So basically what you need to do is learn how to feed yourself emotionally. In other words, figure out ways not to be reliant on one source, meaning your husband, for your emotional needs. It helps. Different people are helped different ways. It helps by being busy. It helps by giving to others. It helps by accomplishing. It helps by nurturing. It helps by working with children. All these things I mentioned feed people. And maybe none of those things work for you. Figure out what works for you. Figure out what feeds you, or your friend, what feeds her. Because you do not want ever that your husband should be the sole source of your nurturance. That's very, very, very important. Not that you shouldn't be ultimately close. That's the goal. And not that you shouldn't have the absolute best marriage ever. Not that he shouldn't be your absolute best friend. All that's true. But you still want to have other sources that are feeding you, because you don't want to be, like, clingy in a way that's really can drive the man crazy, and does. Now, if you're doing this, though, let's go back to this idea. So here you are, you know, maybe you're a little emotionally needy, and you can maybe be a little clingy, and you get the idea that it's not really healthy to go into marriage that way. So you start developing other things. It's important when you do that to not do something with strings attached in the relationship. Meaning, sometimes a person who's emotionally needy but is going to create other relationships is creating relationships with a lot of strings attached. Meaning you're giving to someone else because you want from them. You want from them. And it creates a lot of, like, sort of obsessive relationships, sort of unhealthy relationships. And in general, a relationship, you don't want to start a relationship with the strings attached, with what I need from you. I'm giving to you because I want to get from you. I'm giving to you because I want to get from you. And that's very normal and it's very human. But in theory, as you're trying to do it right, you wouldn't want to create a relationship with that mindset. What am I I'm giving with all my heart because I want something. Because first of all, a lot of times you get hurt because you don't get what you want from the relationship. So it really sets you up for a lot of hurt, for a lot of pain, a lot of very deeply giving people experience this. They're not thinking I'm giving to get, but they're giving, and usually there's a get. And when it doesn't happen, especially when you give and you give and you give with all your heart and all your resources, and then all you feel is take, and you get so hurt. So a real good way to avoid that is to go into the relationship saying, this isn't about getting, this is about giving. Any questions or comments or feedback on any of these ideas?
I do a quick question. You said, remember you taught us that like the husband is supposed to be the mashpia and the woman is the makabel?
Absolutely.
When you talk about giving and getting, what do you mean by that?
So what I meant there, actually, I wasn't talking about your relationship with your husband, but you could definitely apply it to your relationship with your husband. What I was actually saying was that we're talking about a situation where I am looking to create more relationships in my life because I see my style is I might really draw a lot from my husband. I might need him to fill my bucket a lot. And I know that's not good for marriage. It's not good for marriage. So I'm creating relationships with other people because I want them to also fill my bucket. So I'm giving them because I want something back from them. Back doesn't, most of the time, I don't think it means in a physical sense something back, but it means that maybe in an emotional sense, in affirmation, and emotion, and feeling, and whatever, in things that stroke us and make us feel fed. So what I was saying was when you give because you want to get, it's very dangerous territory. So on one hand, I'm telling you, oh, you're emotionally needy. It's good to help give and nurture other people, and that feeds you. It does feed you. But at the same time, I know this is sounds like a little contradictory advice, but both are true, and I'm trying to lay it all out on the table. At the same time, if you go into a relationship with a very vested interest of what I need to get out of this relationship, it's not good. Often it's an unhealthy relationship, and often you're going to get hurt. Now, let's get back to your husband with that question, because it also, of course, applies to your husband. Yes, absolutely. You're the recipient. He's the mashpia, and which means he's giving, you're receiving. Of course, it doesn't mean you don't give. You give, but you give in a way of the recipient giving, not in the way of the initiator giving. So you're giving. Now, a lot of times there could be this trap, same trap I was just talking about here, which is why it's relevant to bring it in, of giving your husband a lot as the makabel, giving him a lot and feeling that you're not getting, and feeling very upset, feeling very like depleted. This is actually a very normal thing to fall for women, especially when they feel like, oh my gosh, or it could be like, I'm working so hard, I'm doing everything for the family, my husband's sitting on his phone and relaxing, or I don't know, watching something or whatever, and I'm working, or I'm giving. I keep giving him so many gifts. Gifts don't have to be physical gifts. There's lots of gifts you can give another person. I'm giving him so many gifts, and he's not giving me anything back. That's a very normal, very bad space to get into in a marriage. And it exactly goes back to what I said before. You want to be a giver, and you want to ideally be a giver without strings attached. You want to be a giver who's not looking to receive. Well, of course you're looking to receive. It's your marriage. Of course you want to receive. I know. But in the act of giving, you have to tell yourself, at least tell to yourself many times, this is a free gift. What could a free gift be? A free gift could be when he comes home, I close my phone. I look at him. I smile. I talk to him. I listen to him. That's my free gift for him. When I need attention, he's not there for me. I gave him a free gift. It wasn't a this for that. It was a free gift. I make a point that when he comes home, supper's ready. That's a free gift for him. I make a point that before he comes home, I put on makeup. I make myself look pretty. That's a free gift for him. But why isn't he giving me back? A free gift, there's no give back. It's a free gift. So I think it's really important in a marriage to be generous and give lots of gifts. And I think it's really important to give them freely. So in other words, you're not thinking, because I need this, I'm doing this. No. We're married. This is the person I'm married to and I love and is absolutely going to be the central force in my life for me. And as such, I want to gift him. Because I want to get gifts from him? No, because I want to gift him. So you want to give lots of gifts and you want them to be totally free. Because if they have a string attached, you get very, very, very hurt. And if he senses a string, he's not going to be very happy either. Any questions on that? It's not per se what we were discussing, but definitely a very relevant topic. Okay. Separate issue. What if your parents, you're in the middle of going out, you like him, you're excited, and then your parents hear something about him or perhaps about his family, and they say, you know, we heard some information, or you came home and told them something that you were okay with, but they were very concerned with, and they say, we want to break this off. What do you do at that point? And that's also, again, it might never happen to you. It might have already happened to you. That is definitely something that happens. They're your parents. They love you. We're assuming this is a healthy relationship. You have a good relationship with them. They love you. You know they love you. You know they're doing it from care. What do you do? So the answer is it depends. Sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they are right, and you just can't see clearly. You're young. You're infatuated. You're like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We'll deal with it later. And they're like, no. This is not something you deal with later. This is a big deal, and we do have to take care of it. And they're right, and you're wrong. And sometimes you're right. It's a very big issue for them, and it's truly not an issue for you. It truly doesn't bother you, and it's truly not going to bother you, and you're truly comfortable with it. Like, let's say they realize he's very poor, and he's not going to really have the ability to provide for you as they provided for you. Or maybe they didn't have much ability to provide for you, and they really wanted you to marry someone who could provide for you. And they feel like, no, this is not going to give you the life you need and you want. And you're like, it's fine, I don't care. And they're like, now you don't care, but you're going to care in a few years, and you're going to be stuck. Are they right? Are you right? What do you do at that point? So what you do at that point is, and this is why she's very important, you should turn to your Shidduch Mashpia, to that great mysterious woman we spoke about before many times, who is someone you chose before you started going out, that you trust, that you respect, that has a relationship with you, that can mentor and guide you. Because basically, everyone here is very subjective. Your parents are very subjective, and you're very subjective. And who knows what's the truth? And I've definitely been involved in many of these types of situations. And honestly, sometimes I 100% feel the parent is right, and sometimes I 100% feel the girl is right. Not that the parent's wrong, but that it's okay. She doesn't mind. They realize he's really not smart. And she's like, I'm okay with that. I don't need him to be smart. Well, of course you need him to be smart. No, I really don't need him to be smart. What, you're going to want him to be smart? No, I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't bother me. It's not what I need in a husband. It's not what I'm looking for. Oh, but what about your kids? What about it? I'm totally fine with it. And she's right. She's totally fine with it, so it's great. But sometimes it's an issue that the parents are right. And there's big problems here, but the girl can't see it. So that's why it's really, really, really important in this situation not to get stuck with your parents, not to ignore them and just think they have no clue what they're talking about, but not necessarily to just give in to them because they might be wrong. So it's really, really good then to have an objective person. Well, what if you don't have the Shidduch Mashpia? You didn't think it was important. You never got one. So find someone then. Find someone that you and your parents both respect, that you feel has wisdom in this area, and both of you should talk honestly together about the situation and see what the person guides you with. Again, I'm not saying you have to absolutely listen to this one individual. You might want to go to two people, you might want to go to three people. It's very important. This is who you're marrying. But that's basically the best way to handle these situations. And honestly, sometimes your parents are right, and sometimes you're right. It works in both ways. But going to another person, an outside person, an objective person, really can give perspective and clarity. Any questions, comments, feelings on that one? Okay. What if you, I mean, it could go either way. If a person suffered from an abusive father, or if a person in general suffered abuse, this is something very, very pivotal that obviously comes up very strongly when you're getting married. You know, again, this is why people, oh, I don't need to pay attention to this part, nothing to do with faith, thank God. But it's still good to focus because, you know, there might be other people in your life that this is relevant to, and you'd want to be able to know what to tell them. So if a girl's father was abusive, she has to be very, very, very careful when she's going out. Because a lot of times, it might seem strange, but she could connect and be attracted to an abusive man. Maybe there's different reasons why. Maybe because of that's her father image. Maybe because she's weak, he's attracted to her, she's attracted to him. You know, there could be various reasons why it works that way, but unfortunately, sometimes it does work that way. So what does a person do in that situation? So what they need to do is be aware of it and do super, super extensive research. Really serious research. Now, why am I emphasizing serious research? Because a lot of times, not when you're 20 years old or 21 years old, but if you're already like 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, people stop really doing research too much. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people just, they're sick and tired of research. They feel it's such a waste of time. They spend so long doing research. In the end, the guy says no anyway, or in the end, they went out and they saw it didn't help them at all anyway. So a lot of people, as they get older, the research gets sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. Very normal. And I'm not saying it's a problem, but in this situation, it's a problem. This situation, you cannot afford that. There really has to be very, very, very good research. And you want to specifically research in all the areas that would be relevant, that would indicate issues that we'd be concerned about. So I'm going to give you a long list now. You can absorb the list. I think you'll understand the point of the list. And you could say, hey, I don't have any of these background issues, but this is a good list for me to remember as well. Which it definitely is, because this is just practically so it's a good list in general, as I'm saying. 1, do I sense, again, this is research, and this is when you're going out. Both times you can have your antennas out for this. Controlling. Is he controlling? Is he manipulative? Is he rigid? What happens if he doesn't get his way? You could, even if you're concerned, set up a situation when you're going out and see what happens. Again, he might have total control and not be himself, but sometimes people show themselves. See what happens. Does he have a temper? How long does he sulk if he's upset about something? These are all great questions to think about when you're going out with anyone, whatever background you have in this direction. What's his relationship with his friends? Is he domineering? Does he freely put down other people? Is he frequently sarcastic? Is he overly critical? Is he hard to please? Does he have overly high standards? People cover up a lot by saying they have high standards. That could be a very abusive technique. Does he have overly high standards? So those would all be things when you're doing research to look into. And again, I'm not saying the girl herself, but whoever's doing research to look into. And when going out to look into, to really, really be sensitive to. And again, if a person's been hurt in the past, so we're talking about a girl that's been hurt, you want to really be careful. But this is in general good for everyone to be careful with. And at the same time, especially again for someone who's been hurt, you really want to look for the opposite. You want to look for someone who's gentle. You want to look for someone who's a nurturer. You might not be initially attracted to these people, but you want to look for them. You want to look for someone who's kind, for someone who builds up other people, maybe for someone who's soft-spoken, who's emotionally sensitive, who's caring, who's compassionate. These are all beautiful traits. Sure.
Just had a question on what you're saying. Sometimes in dating, I feel as if it's, particularly easy to cover these kinds of things up. And also I think that sometimes even if they have those qualities, they may be at a point in life where they haven't come out yet because they haven't just been through enough stress and life stuff that, they just haven't been under so much pressure in life yet that they feel that these come out yet. Are there early indicators for these things?
That's a great question, Dina. And your early indicators is the second half. There's also the first half of the question. Both of the things Dina said is 100% correct. The first thing Dina said was, if you're self-aware that you have these qualities and you understand you don't want other people to know about them, you cover them up. And a lot of times men like this are very good at covering it up. They're very smooth, especially if they're, again, some men are not aware. They're just themselves and they don't realize what they're doing. And some men are very conscious of what they're doing. And they're very good at covering up because they've covered up in the past for other people. It's not like the first time they're covering it up is when they go out on a date. They know how to cover it up. They cover it up. That's where we get into this idea of research. I would also say you get the idea of like your intuition, your inner radar. Like everything seems perfect and something inside of you is saying no, 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 no. No again. So that's also a hard thing to say. I'm dealing with a girl now who everything is perfect and is saying no, 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 and I think it's because she has anxiety issues. So it's hard to make a carte blanche answer because there's a lot of factors. But I mean everything is perfect, like not like in the situation I'm thinking of. It's not that he's guy's so smooth, and he's not at all. But I'm saying, if you know yourself and you know you're anxious, and if it feels like it's real, you're going to start getting anxious and think, he's great, but I don't know if I want to get married. You know it's you. You know you've got a problem, and you do have a problem, and please deal with it because otherwise you never get married. Like, it's a problem. But I mean more like he's very smooth, and everything looks right, and everything in you is right and excited, but then there's a voice under all that that's saying, no, I don't know why, but no. I trust that voice. Now, maybe you don't want to break it off, but maybe you want to do a lot of deep research because your inner radar, your intuition is getting very, very nervous. Also, maybe just in general, especially with someone who seems very like, who you're not sure about. Like sometimes, yeah, is what I said before, to like make a test. I've more than once, I don't remember the details now, but like I remember one situation clearly, but I'm sure it's more than once, where, it was, she might have been engaged at this point, or maybe almost engaged, but she got very nervous about something. And I was like, okay, let's make a test. And we created a scenario, and let's see how he acts. Like let's say you're nervous about all this, and you're like I said, I'm gonna pose him. I want to see. I mean, he'll control himself, but I'm watching very closely. Do I see a lot of anger or whatever as while he's gaining control? Do something like really stupid and see how he acts. You might say, I don't want to do something stupid. I want to turn him off. But if you're really nervous, it's okay. Do something really stupid, and see how he acts. See what's his instant first response before he's, like do something really annoying. Watch him in traffic. If it's really bad traffic, how's he acting? Watch carefully, because you're absolutely right. And again, if your inner voice says something, do more research, do more research, do more research. You might find everything's great. But if someone really has these issues and you're doing a lot of research, you should find out. Now, when you're doing the research, remember to speak to friends. Don't speak to adults. Friends are almost always more honest. They're just younger, so they're not as careful about the concept of, oh, I have to protect this person. You know, for better or worse, friends are generally gonna be more honest. Not always, but generally. So
Would it be
like,
so, Miss Tara, would it be so wrong to like spill Coke on him by accident?
no, it wouldn't be wrong at all.
I love that.
That would be a great example of doing something stupid. Great example.
See how he reacts.
See how he reacts. Just do something and watch for the first reaction. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, someone's controlling themselves, they're going to control themselves, but there's going to be a first reaction, and then they're going to control themselves. So what's the first reaction? That's him. If you spilled Coke all over him, on his shirt, make sure, realize maybe something that stains more, wine, whatever. You spill it all over fruit. Fruit stains very deeply, fruit juice. The first reaction before he controls himself. Look for that. That's what I mean by doing something stupid. Or just say something really off and see, does he look annoyed? Does he look like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid? Like what's happening with him with those types of situations? But you insist on going someplace he doesn't want to go to. Is he gracious about it? Does he give in? Does he refuse to give in? Is it really stupid place?
At what point in the dating process might you do that if you're curious? Like, I don't know if this, like there might be a certain point where he knows that, like, right when you meet him, you obviously don't want to just throw all these tests. At what point
a girl's gonna do this when she's concerned. Meaning, this isn't like I'm glad you raised it. It's not like, by the way, every time, make sure with every person you go out to, you make sure you spill the Coke on him at least once, maybe twice. No, you don't do it generally. You're not trying to look bad during a date. You're trying to look good. It's when you're concerned. Now, again, a girl could be concerned because she comes from an abusive background. So she should be especially concerned. A girl could be concerned because just something in her inner voice is making her feel concerning. A girl could be concerned because some things they heard very peripherally when they were doing research, like dinged a few little bells that were concerning her. A girl could be concerned because something happened when they were going out. I'll tell you something that happened when I was going out that concerned me. I didn't do anything like this, and it wasn't anything along the lines of abusive. I mean, that's not my husband at all. But there's something happened that really made me uncomfortable. We were going out, and as is totally normal, I'm sure it's happened to many couples, it's supposed to be top secret, and we went out to some place in Manhattan, and there was another Lubavitcher couple there. I mean, I didn't know them because I didn't know that many people, but my husband, of course, knew them. So here we are. It's not a big place. There's not that many of us. And obviously they see us. They're engaged, but we're going out. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me find a hole to hide under. And my husband, now my husband, he went past them and smiled and said hi and moved on. Now, obviously, in retrospect, he did it right and I did it wrong. But at the time, I was like, oh my gosh. I was really like, oh, yeah. I was just, I don't know why, it just really made me very uncomfortable. Is this okay? And I don't remember if I spoke to anyone about it. I think I did speak to someone. I think actually I mentioned it to my grandmother. But she was saying, I was like, I don't know. He was just so casual about it, cool. It was so embarrassing. And I think my cousin was one of the people that made the shidduch. And I think she said, listen, if whatever my cousin's name was, if he made the shidduch, he's a nice boy, don't worry. So I took her advice, and she was right. But sometimes things happen that just make you I don't know. Maybe got angry about something. You're like, I don't know, maybe he has an anger issue. Maybe he told a story about himself that I don't know, sounds pretty controlling. Those are the times when you do this. So it was not going to be on the first, second, or third date, no matter what. If first, second, third date, you're already feeling all these weird things, you probably want to end it. But this is you're already feeling like maybe he's right, but any one of the things I just said. And that's when you would do something to just see that first reaction. So that's half of Dina's question. Gina said something else, which was also very smart and very true. She said sometimes people do have these issues, but they haven't come out yet. Because he hasn't gone through enough life for it to come out. He hasn't been under enough stress for it to come out. And that's true too. I mean, we definitely bring Hashem in, and we try to do whatever we can to bring Hashem in to give us guidance and clarity. The only thing that really could help you in that, and because you're not going to see signs, because the whole point is there are no signs, it hasn't come out yet. But in general, especially if you're concerned in this area, is to research his parents. I would say primarily his father, but sometimes it could be the mother, but usually it's the father. To research his parents. And if you find in researching his parents have this in their history, that's what they're like as people, it might make you feel like maybe he's not right for me, maybe I shouldn't go out with him. Or maybe you're going out and everything seems fine, but it's getting serious, and you're like, I really need to know this issue, and it doesn't seem he has it, but I really need to know. That's when you'd want to do a lot of research on his parents. That's the only thing I tell you. Or in general, his family. It could be parents, siblings, uncles. In general, it's not bad when you're doing research to try to get a feeling for the family feel. Now, again, he could be completely not like his family. And I've seen situations like that. Like the whole family, I think of a certain family I know them well. And they're like sort of a little pushy, a little manipulative, a little abusive. I mean, they're very nice people, but like a little bit like, pushing to get their own way very strongly type people. And there's shit that came up for a certain girl, and this boy's not like his family. He's just not. And every time they did all the research, I was like, he's not like his family. He's soft, he's gentle, he's kind, he's not like his family. And that was consistently heard and demonstrated when they went out, and Baruch Hashem, they're happily married today. So it does happen. But if you find a family, especially the parents or all the uncles, all of his brothers are in a certain way, unless you hear very clearly, and he's not like his family, that's he might be like his family. But those people, let me clarify. Sorry for spending a long time on this, but I want to clarify what I said. Taking Dina's second situation, a boy who hasn't demonstrated this yet, but really has it lurking inside, he's not covering it up. He's not truly exhibiting these tendencies yet. So it's not a cover-up issue. He's not covering it up. So therefore, if you do research and his whole family is in a certain way, he's probably, whatever. I mean, but sometimes it's very hard. I had this recently, and the opposite, actually, for a boy about a girl who her parents are very pushy people, very aggressive people, in good ways. I mean, they do good things, but they're very strong people. And this shidduch kept coming up for this boy that he didn't want to marry a girl like that. He didn't want to marry this pushy, aggressive girl. And I said I would try to do the research for him to figure out, is she like her family or not? I mean, of course, it was very hard to do because nobody's going to tell you about a girl, oh yeah, she's very pushy and aggressive. So you have to like snoop around, ask a bunch of questions that are very open-ended to sort of figure out, is she or isn't she? But that's what I could say about that second part. So what I'm answering to your second half is siyata d'shmaya. Do things to bring Hashem in, so you should have the guidance. And heavy duty research on the parents, siblings, uncles, the whole family gestalt to try to give you a glimpse, give you a picture.
Mr. Turn, is there like an appropriate way to kind of like have a conversation with him about it? Like, how would you describe your personality, or like, any way to kind of like see what his reaction would be to those kinds of like more specific inquiries?
In general, it's not a problem when you've been going out a while to have an honest conversation. Actually, honest conversations usually bridge the two people together. If you're concerned about anything about him and you honestly lay it on the table and talk to him about it, if it was a healthy conversation, at the end of the conversation, you're both going to feel much closer to each other because it was an honest, deep conversation. So there's never a problem with an honest conversation. But again, that might or might not help. And that's why I'm saying, because he might not be aware, he might not view himself as pushy and aggressive. Oh, compared to his siblings, he's nothing. Oh, but in general, the family is really pushy and aggressive. But in general, honest conversations often build relationships between you and the person you're going out with. Now, I wouldn't do it the second time going out with a person or the third time going out with a person. But if you've gone out enough times that you're already like past the shadchan, again, never give her up, but like, you know, that stage of the game, an honest conversation about your concerns is very healthy, because I'm saying it only should be something that's successful. It only should be something that either honest conversation means you realize you two are irreconcilably not for each other, or it bridges you together. So in general, honest conversations are very good. Now, going back to this girl who's concerned about herself, or her parents are concerned about her, or you're her friend and you're concerned about her. Sometimes if you're really concerned, it's really wise to have someone else check the boy out, like see him in action, surreptitiously or overtly. Because sometimes just the girl can't see things and another person can see it like this, especially observant people. So sometimes that is a good idea. Now, sort of along these lines, but going past this specific idea, if a girl, or a boy, I'm talking to girls here, if a person was abused or has a mental illness on some level, or there's a mental illness in the family, you know, any of these types of things, I'm not going to have to be literally this list, but any of these types of things, it's really good to work on yourself before you go out, or while you're going out. It could be a mashpia figure, it could be a healer, it could be a therapist. You know, all of these things, you when you go into marriage, you want to be a healthy wife and a healthy mother. And unfortunately, some people decide they know they're not healthy and they decide they never want to get married. Sometimes, I mean, going back to the abusive father situation, sometimes people witness very bad marriages and they're from their parents and they just don't want to get married. And that's so sad and so painful. It's so painful to imagine someone that never gets married. It's tremendous loneliness. It's tremendous deficit in their entire life. And that's some people's response to their history. And other people, they have a different response and they feel, I'm fine, I don't need help. But if there's a history, it's still worthwhile sometimes to do work, even if you think you're absolutely fine, for exactly the reason Dina just said, that sometimes these things don't come out yet. Meaning, just like statistically, mental illnesses generally only surface in your 20s. So let's say girl's 22 years old, and she knows there's some, you know, issues in her family, and she's never experienced anything. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean anything. Because exactly as Dina said, you maybe, not you, the person maybe hasn't had enough stress, enough real trauma in her life to bring this out. I'll give you a personal example, which is a different type of stress and trauma, but just to understand the concept. My father had yenemachla, had leukemia. He passed away very young. When he was 53, passed away from it. Now, he got it when he was 39. My father was a scientist working for the Army, and in those days they didn't understand the dangers of radiation, so he was exposed to a lot of radiation in some scientific experiment, and he and every other single person in his laboratory all came down with some form of yenemachla. So he came down with yenemachla when he was 39. He was very young. But for 7 years it was completely dormant. He had it. He knew he had it. He was going to a doctor, but it wasn't aggressively changing his life. And then he was in a very bad car accident. And right after that car accident, boom, suddenly the yenemachla came out and took over. And that's a very normal thing to happen. There was a very physical trauma to his system. In theory, oh my gosh, he's so lucky because he survived unscathed, but really he wasn't unscathed at all. It was a tremendous trauma to his physical body. And because of that trauma, this latent disease came out. Now, the same way that happens in these very physical ways, it also happens in other ways. There's someone I know personally, well, who when he was in his 20s, he was in a car accident, a child car accident, a very, very bad car accident. It was a miracle he walked away from it, or, I mean, he was obviously had some recovery, but a miracle he came away fine. And right afterwards, this mental illness came out. That was sort of genetic in his family, you know, other people in his family had it on some level, but he never experienced anything. And then suddenly the car accident, that trauma to his system brought it out. So it's totally possible, and it's not uncommon that people get married totally unaware that they have an issue. Or, that's like talking about sort of the mental illnesses issues, or have seen a lot of bad stuff in their parents' marriage, but don't think it's affected them at all. Or have been abused and don't think it's affected them at all. Sometimes girls have been abused by men, don't think it's affected them at all. And then they get married and well, they have a lot of issues, tremendous issues, horrific issues, because of course it really did affect them. And now it's coming out. So in any of these types of situations, it's, if you know for yourself or for a friend that it's possible for one reason or another to be in this category, it's really worthwhile to do the work beforehand. And there is work you can do beforehand. You speak to some good people and find out what you could do and get help before suddenly you're in a marriage and dealing with real stress, and then like, whoa, realize you don't have the tools and have a lot of stuff that are coming out then that you really don't know how to deal with. So that's
okay. Wait, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Let's say you notice something that you don't really love about the person, but you're willing to accept it. I can deal with this. Everything else seems amazing. But then what happens when like right now at this point in your life, you're probably more laid back. Life isn't really stressful. You don't have kids or bills yet. These are kind of just like, you know, okay. So it's not a big deal to like take on this extra, you know, annoyance of this guy or whatever he's dealing with. What happens when life actually like sets in, you know, kicks in, and like it's the
5
kids.
children later.
Yeah, like then what? Like then is this going to be like exaggerating your life? It's going to be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I really can't deal with it because there's so much more going on. Like, how are you supposed to judge that?
So this is exactly the type of situation I meant that could happen with a girl in conflict with her parents. Like the girl comes back from going out and she says something very innocently, like it didn't bother her, but he shared that he has a lot of credit card debt. You know, saying, oh, you know, he has, you know, somehow came out, oh, you know, he has a lot, or, you know, he had to go through 3 credit cards till he found one that could pay for the 2 sodas because, oh, yeah, he has a lot of credit cards that don't work anymore, he has a lot of credit card debt. You can you're 19 years old, you don't think twice about it. Your parents are like, what? Why does he have a lot of credit card debt? He's 24. What's he been doing? Let's research him. Let's find out how much credit card debt he has. Oh, come on, what difference does it make? What? And I was like, no, this is very serious. But, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. So if taking Shira's example literally, which doesn't always work that way, Shira's example, you are aware of something, but like it's okay. So there's 2 responses to that. One's response is nobody's perfect. And I imagine every single person that's ever gotten engaged has noticed something that, or perhaps, maybe not everyone, but most people have probably noticed something that's like not very important to them. So to notice something isn't like a red flag at all. It's totally normal. But if you think, well, I don't know, maybe later it could be an issue, but I don't really think so, that would be a good opportunity to speak to this mentor person and say, you know, he told me he has, you know, $20,000 in, I'm not talking about college debt. He has $20,000 in debt. From what? I don't know, credit card debt. Do you think I should be concerned? Do you think I shouldn't be concerned? Now, again, I'm not saying that's the reason to break off a shidduch. I'm saying it's a reason to speak to someone and say, is this a reason to break off a shidduch? What should we figure out here? You know, you realize when you're going out with him, because as you're going out more, or you're talking more, you realize he never seems to be up on time in the morning. And you speak to him about it, he says, oh, I'm not a morning person. Oh, okay, well, now he's going to yeshiva, so he rolls in at 11. Well, maybe that's fine, and maybe once he has a real job, he'll be up at 6 a.m. Or maybe not. You know, that's the type of thing that you'd want to discuss with someone else and say, is this a concern? Is this not a concern? And have them help you figure it out. You might not necessarily want to go first to your parents because they may get all nervous, but you do want to go with someone. And exactly what Shira sketched out is exactly the classical situation. You're going out, you're aware of things, they don't bother you. You're married for 3 years, they still don't bother you. I think we said one class that is like year 7 or year 8. That's the year in America where people get divorced. Well, this is part of the reason why. You know, by that time, maybe a certain boredom has set in, maybe a certain stress level has set in, maybe there's more stuff going on. And these like little minor things become like annoying. And you just are like, what am I doing this for? What am I in this for? Why do I want this person? But again, nobody has that crystal ball to absolutely tell you. But the best thing to do is really know, again, Shira's question, I just want to highlight a minute, is different than what Dina was saying before. It's not like you're not sure if he has this issue. You're absolutely sure he has this issue. You know he has this issue. What you don't know is it important or not? So again, I'm playing both sides of the coin. One side is nobody's perfect. You also have plenty of issues. We all have plenty of issues. And if you feel this is something you can handle, be grateful it's not something worse. The other side of the coin is go speak to someone you trust to like make sure that this issue is in that category of nobody's perfect. This is his issue. Could be worse. Move on. And there's lots of great marriages where as the people are married, they realize more and more issues their spouse might have. But that doesn't mean it can't be a good marriage. But sometimes it makes it very, 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 very difficult. So that would be like the back and forth answer to that question. I don't know if it's answer the question, but that would be what I would tell someone if they were going out and they were concerned. Now, let's lay it on the table. Let's look at the issue and let's see, does it feel like this in the future could cause tremendous stress? And are you willing to have that stress? Now, I don't know if you remember, I don't know who was on. Remember a few times ago, I was mentioning a girl I was very close to, that when she was engaged, found out, I mean, because the boy found out then, that he had a serious illness. And I'm not going to say the whole story again because I said it before, but just to sort of highlight this point, and I very much was telling her, break it off. It's a serious illness. And she, young and had no desire to break it off. And in the end, she did not break it off. They're happily married. Happy marriage between her and her husband. But he does have the illness, and it sometimes expresses itself in a way that creates enormous stress and enormous difficulty for months and months and months. Again, as I said, God did it kindly because she knew it and she chose it and she accepted it. And she knows all that. But definitely, as an adult, I had a different perspective on it than she had on the issue. It doesn't mean she was, I'm not saying she was wrong. She wasn't wrong. But I'm just saying that's why sometimes it's good to talk to someone else. It's a little late. I did want to end on time, but I'm just going to mention one other point, minor point, but just sort of piggybacking on the idea of spilling the Coke. What if you did something not planned, but you made a major mistake? Like you made a major mistake. You went out and you realized afterwards you said something really hurtful to him. You said something really, you didn't mean it at all at the time. You just didn't realize, like you didn't know this about him. You said something, and afterwards you found out something, and it was like, oh wow, that was really insulting. That was really hurtful. And you really liked him. You really, I mean, you weren't going to get married yet, but you definitely wanted to continue going out. If that happens before the next time you're supposed to go out, convey an apology. If it's still the initial times, you could convey the apology through the shadchan. If you're already very comfortable with each other, you could text an apology. You could text, can I talk to you about this? I realize I realize I said something really that I didn't mean, and I really want to discuss it with you. The reason why it's important to do this before you go out again is because otherwise you might never go out again. Like if you made this major mistake and you're like, oh my, I mean, I've seen this in action where someone makes a major mistake and they discuss it with me and they're like, okay, next time we go out, you know, my first go-to is going to be to apologize. Well, guess what? There never was a next to because it never happened again because they didn't go out again. So sometimes the person makes a major mistake. The other person's like, I don't want that person at all. I'm no more going out. And that's why before you get the no, not after he says he doesn't want to go out with you, like right away, before you want to convey the apology, you want to convey to him personally in a text or something, an apology. You want to ask him if you could talk and you apologize. We make mistakes. We are human, and sometimes we don't mean to be rude or insulting, and we really are. So that would be my final thought. Sorry, it's a little bit over time. I was in my head thinking, okay, this is the advantage of Zoom. We're going to be on time, and we're going to end on time, but pretty close. So any other thoughts, feelings, or questions before we close?
Yeah, I have just a quick question about what
Sure,
you said
Malky.
about like if you said something that was hurtful or that you didn't mean to,
Mhm.
can you like tell the shadchan because like you have no other way of getting like a hold of the guy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I said. If this was your second date, even if you know his phone number because he texts you when he comes to the door, I wouldn't say it to him directly anyway. I would still go through a shotgun because at this point you're not directly talking. You know what I'm saying? You know each other's numbers, but you're not directly talking. You are talking through a shotgun. So at that
Right.
point I would do it fast. Meaning because
Like that
it was
night?
something that night. If you realize afterwards, oh my gosh, what did I say? I didn't mean it. I don't know. I mean, whatever. I've seen it enough times, but simple example, you were saying how like, oh, well, I know it'd be really weird if you didn't realize this, but like talking like you would never, you would never go out with someone who comes from a divorced family, not knowing he's from a divorced family, or, whatever, things along those lines. You speak about a certain profession and then you find out that's his father's profession, or speaking about doing a certain thing wrong and then you find out, well, everybody knows his father does that wrong, but you didn't know, so you didn't mean anything. Like these things happen all the time, unfortunately. All the time's an exaggeration, but they happen. So you said something, it was insulting. You might even have realized at the time, you just didn't know what to do about yourself, where to hide yourself. So you just kept going. Right away, I would send the shadchan a message, please tell him right away, I really majorly messed up. I said this, and whatever apologies you can say, and then hopefully he'll accept or give you another time to talk it out in person. But if he says no and then you apologize, it doesn't work. That's why you have to do it right away.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, Dina.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, what if there's a time when you said something or you messed up like that and you didn't realize, you didn't find your mistake? Is there like, and then all of a sudden he, is not interested in the shadchan and tells you like that's, it's because you said X, Y, and Z and it made him uncomfortable and you realize your mistake. At that point, when it's already like kind of over, is there anything you should do, or is it just kind of like it is what it is?
Well, first of all, you could always apologize. Meaning, if you said a rude comment, and not meaning to be rude, and you made some racist comment against Sephardim and have no clue that actually his mother's Sephardi, and he was like, "Oh wow, that's how she feels. I have no interest in this girl." It's still mental to apologize. You could just say, convey through the shadchan again at that point, like, I hear what he says and I accept it, but please convey my apologies because I had no desire to be hurtful. And he's totally right. It was really a completely inappropriate comment. And I'm really, really sorry. I said it. Everything's a shkacha protest, but I really do regret saying it and I hope he accepts my sincere apologies. That's version 1 of the story. Version 2 is, well, what if you really still want to go out with him? You could try. It depends on what you said and how hurt he got and what other history he's had with this issue, how sensitive he is to it. He might feel if this is what you really feel, we're really not compatible, and that's it. Or he just might have been hurt, and then it's like you could apologize. So if the shadchan says, yeah, he's not, you're done, you're like, what? I thought it was going so well. Can you find out why? Sometimes the shadchan will find out why, sometimes they won't. But it never hurts to say, can you find out why? It's valuable information. In all situations, it's always valuable information to know why he said no. But a lot of times he's not going to tell you the truth, but it's still worthwhile asking. So, and then she comes back and says, well, he actually was really offended when you made that comment about Sephardim. His mother's Sephardi, and he thought it was a racist comment in general, and he doesn't want to marry someone who's a racist, and he doesn't want to marry someone who has a bias against Sephardim. He doesn't look Sephardi, but he's 50% Sephardi, and he was very hurt and insulted and doesn't think you're for him. He'd be like, oh my gosh, it was such a see. think it over, and you could say, you know what, I totally get everything he's saying. He's 100% correct, but I didn't really mean it. It was like, just came out, there was no real thought in it. I have, 5 of my best friends are sergeant, and I have no, no issue with sergeant at all. I don't know that much about them. I love their food. I think it's great culture, and maybe we could try again. He might say yes, he might say no. You can never lose by asking. Anyone else? Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, so next week, as far as I understand, I will not be available because that is going to be that Wednesday night every once in a while when I have another group I do on sporadic Wednesdays. So next week's going to be one of those sporadic Wednesdays. The following week, you can decide, if maybe this is going to make more sense at that time weather-wise. We could do this again over Zoom. Obviously, it's easier. You don't have to drive. You don't have to park. You can be in New York and participate. Obviously, it's nicer in a sense when we're all together because it's, easier environment to talk and ask, but it might practically make more sense like this. So we can sort of keep it in our thoughts and decide what works the best for us. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much, Malky, for arranging it, for hosting our
Thank
virtual
you.
room. Sure. Thank you. I'm glad it worked. I'm glad we survived the weather and managed to have the class anyway. Be well. Have a good night and a great week.
Thank you.